Hello, we are here at the CS4HS 2015 US application discussion. Looks like we don't have any viewers yet, so we'll wait for a few minutes and see how many folks join us. Chris, it looks like you have sun coming through your window.
I do. It's like momentary.
Yeah.
It's pouring. It's been pouring so much. Our street actually flooded last night.
Oh,
So
really? It's been like that in the Bay Area. I'm sure you've heard about it. Quite the monsoon.
Karen, I'm still visible to the public.
It's not, I don't,
Okay, then I'm jumping off because I don't want to be, okay.
Yep. Yeah, having grown up in Ohio, I think it's a little humorous when the Bay Area gets so excited about rain, because I'm used to tornadoes and snowstorms.
Yep. And I keep thinking I don't care if it falls from the sky as long as I don't have to shovel it. I'm happy.
Yes, I can appreciate that, having grown up in the snow. Oh, it looks like we have a couple people have joined us. That's great. So we're just getting started with the CS4HS 2015 US application discussion. We'll probably wait just one more minute or so and see if a few more folks join us, and then we'll get started with our conversation. Chris and I, for those of us that have joined us, we're just comparing weather notes. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area at Google's headquarters in Mountain View, and it is, we've had a pretty horrific rainstorm come through the area. More rain than we've seen, I think they said, in 10 years. Biggest storm we've had in 10 years. So it's, some respects, exciting for us because we didn't get much rain last year. So we've been in a bit of a drought. Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to those that are joining us. We are excited to be here. This is the CS4HS 2015 US application discussion hangout on air. I am Karen Parker. I'm the program manager for the CS4HS program at Google, and I have Chris here with me. I'll let her introduce herself also.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Stephenson. I'm the program lead for computer science education in the EngEDU department of Google, and very excited about the launch of CS4HS and about communicating with you today about some changes to the program and how you can put together a fabulous application.
Yeah, our intention here today is really to have a conversation with you all about the 2015 application process for CS4HS. We're going to spend a little bit of time just giving you a little bit of background on the approach that we're taking in 2015 and our thoughts behind that approach. And then we'll really open it up to questions and allow you guys to ask the questions that you're interested in and hopefully give you some information that will equip you to go forward and put together great proposals. So I'll turn it over to Chris, who will talk a little bit about our thinking for the 2015 funding year.
Thank you very much, Karen. One of the major pieces of thinking we've been doing is how can we really make sure that CS4HS stays very relevant to the instructors, to the teachers, to the students in an ongoing way. Many of you know this is, I guess, what we'd call a legacy project, which means it's been around Google for quite a few years, and it's really shown itself to be very effective in terms of encouraging professional development that is classroom focused, high quality, and relevant to what teachers need to know or what they want to be teaching their students in the coming year or years. And all of us within the computer science community recognize that one of the biggest shifts that has been happening for the last couple years is the development of the computer science principles course. This course is being developed in partnership between the College Board, who are in charge of all of AP courses, and also the National Science Foundation, who's been funding the development of this new course. And how this all came about was that there was feeling by a number of people that to a large extent, because it's often the only computer science course offered in a high school, that the AP computer science course had become something of a gatekeeper, that it was keeping students out, and we really wanted to be more broadly engaging, to include more students and get them into the field of computer science and exploring their interests there. There was also a shift by the College Board in that there were previously two AP CS exams, the AP-A and the AP-B, and there simply weren't enough students taking the AP-B exam to support two ongoing exams. So what happened was really the best of all possible worlds. It was a decision to continue to support two courses, but to create a new course that would be more broadly engaging and that would reflect a lot of the thinking around what's happening in computer science education and some of the best practices we've learned in the last few years. And so what the decision was to create a course that was focused around the 7 big ideas of computer science. And I won't go through them because we've talked about them in previous HOAs and there's lots of places you can find them. But focusing on big ideas was a way to not just create a breadth course, but to create a course that was more creative, more focused on connecting with students' lives, and less a programming course. And I think that having the two courses in place will really be a boon for all students. For students who just want to explore it, or for students who are really looking at pursuing a college level degree in computer science. So we're entering the best of all possible worlds. But those of us who've survived major changes to the AP know that whenever there is a major shift in advanced placement computer science, it really falls on the teachers to make it happen in their classrooms. And this means mastering a great deal of new content. And so Google's thinking was, how do we help teachers now start preparing either to pilot the course or to get themselves ready for the 2016-17 school year when the new course will be dropping? That is, when the course becomes an AP course and the exam is available in schools. And so we looked around, trying to be very strategic about Google's engagement in K-12 computer science, and we saw that there were some institutions that were planning to do some professional development, particularly the National Science Foundation, but that the advanced placement folks probably won't, the College Board probably won't start major professional development for a while yet, and it's going to take other organizations a little while, or at least get them closer to the actual launch of the course. So we decided to really step up this year and to make computer science principles a real focus of the grants program for CS4HS. And another big piece of this, which is a change which I think a lot of instructors will celebrate, is that we've really made an effort to tie the CS4HS program to not just best practices in terms of delivering PD, but best practices in terms of making sure that that PD actually bears fruit, that it actually supports teachers in incorporating the new learnings and new materials, and also that it supports teachers in ongoing innovation and improvement to instruction, to teaching and learning. And so what that means is that we are building a piece of the grant in that will provide funding to the sites that get CS4HS grants to support their participation and support of either existing communities of practice or of building those communities of practice where they don't exist. And what research tells us is that teachers in community learning and sharing together are able to support ongoing innovation, and that's really, really important. And so this is the second big change in CS4HS this year. For a lot of institutions who have been loyal, long-time CS4HS participants, this is going to be a natural for them because they've been doing a lot of community support. But for some folks, it's going to be new, and that's one of the reasons we're out there talking in the community to help them understand what this program is going to require of them this year, but also helping them be more effective about how they engage in supporting communities of practice.
Great, thank you, Chris, for that overview. That's great. Can you just talk quickly about some of the CS Principles resources that are out there? It looks like the csprinciples.org website was mentioned by Zach. Any other resources that come to mind, Chris, that you think are worth mentioning?
Well, I think one of the things that's really happened is that the CS Principles website has sort of become the repository for a lot of the materials and a lot of the conversation around the CS Principles course. And you'd probably be amazed at the materials that are available on there. As the pilot project has unfolded in the work with the College Board, what they've done is they've put a lot of the materials created by the pilot sites onto the website. And that means you can look at courses that have already been offered. The challenge and the beauty of the CS Principles course is that they're not specifying a language or an approach. And that means the pilot sites were really encouraged to envision different kinds of approaches, use different tools, use different programming languages. And it's kind of one of those let 1,000 flowers bloom. And so by encouraging the sharing of all of these resources that the pilot sites are creating, there's actually been several models that have come forward as to how to teach the AP CS Principles course. And I think that there'll continue to be more models that are shared as we approach the actual launch of the course as an advanced placement course. Just some quick examples. Some of you may know the Beauty and Joy of Computing curriculum. There's a curriculum created for that. I know that code.org is creating a curriculum. I know the University of Washington created a really great curriculum to help present this materials and this course. So really encourage you to go on the www.csprinciples.org site and take a look at all the resources that are there. And I suspect, although Google's not involved in it, that website will continue to evolve as more materials is made available and as more pilot sites and then actual course sites come online.
Yeah, and the CS4HS program funded 2 MOOCs last year that touched on, or were focused on CS Principles. One out of the College of St. Scholastica, focusing on the use of App Inventor with the computer science principles, and then Jeff Gray's work done in the University of Alabama. Both of those resources are available online.
Yeah, and one thing to add is there's also a College Board site that's available, and the URL is really, really long, but you'll be able to find it. It's not too hard. My understanding is that they're upfreshing it. They're providing more information. You can also go on College Board Central if you're used to doing that for looking for your information on various disciplines, and just do a search on computer science. They're starting to put some new material on as well. I think I'd just like to jump on something Karen mentioned, because it's the one piece of information we're really anxious to get out, and we really hope that you'll help us in communicating with the larger community. There are a lot of things that drive decisions around the focus for CS4HS, and as I mentioned earlier, a lot of that has to do with current thinking in the area, trying to understand how to do better professional development. All of these things are really important to us. And so, as Karen mentioned, last year there was a definite focus within the grant program on funding professional development events that were taught via MOOCs. And the reason for that was we're suddenly hearing a whole lot about MOOCs, but we really didn't know very much about what is effective and what isn't effective. And so the role that CS4HS played in that was to helping to develop some really diverse but different models of using MOOCs to provide professional development for teachers. And that really helped us address the big issue for us, that scalability as well. And I see Jeff Gray has popped up, and Jeff was one of those important sites. And I think that what we have learned and are continuing to learn from those MOOCs has really been invaluable. But this year we looked at the landscape, and what we realized is we really want to be much more open in terms of our funding model, and we are extending it and inviting folks who want to use any kind of methodology. MOOCs, fabulous. Blended instruction, fabulous. Face-to-face, fabulous. All of those are welcome to folks using all those methodologies, welcome to apply. But do keep in mind, and I think it's fair to be upfront about this, that scaling is an issue for us. How many students get reached? That's still a big thing. And we're also, moving a little bit beyond just how many people show up to what kind of impact are we really having, and how do we figure that out? So I'm going to turn it back to Karen to talk more about the details of the application process. But if you can help us share the information that we're really open to all kinds of methodologies, we'd be really grateful.
Great. So all of the details about the application process and the eligibility for the applications is on the CS4HS website at cs4hs.com/eligibility or cs4hs.com/application. Applications are due March 15th at midnight. And the reason we've extended the application deadline by a couple weeks for those that have applied for the applications in the past. And the primary reason that we're doing that, extending the application deadline, is because we're going to be at SIGC, which is in the beginning of March, the first week of March, and we're going to devote one of the Google sessions to CS4HS, and specifically communities of practice. We want to have a really deep, rich discussion with all of you about how to develop and strengthen and build communities of practice so that the professional development work that's being done during the workshops is actually embraced and incorporated into the classroom. And we know that many of you have a lot of experience in this area, and so we're eager to really have a dialogue and a conversation with you. And those that are new to communities of practice hopefully can come and participate in this session also, and learn and glean some information that will hopefully make your applications that much better and stronger. So that's the reason why we're extending our deadline a little bit, and hope that you will benefit from that. We are committed to turning around the answers to who is getting funded as quickly as possible so that you can start the planning process as you go forward. And again, the application, all the application information and the eligibility information is on the website cs4hs.com, and we encourage you to check that out. So that's the majority of the information that we had to share with you. Chris, did you have something else you wanted to mention?
Chris Mayfield has a question here, Karen, that maybe
Sure.
you can address. He says, it looks like the application form includes multiple pages. Is it possible to preview the entire form so people can work on their response offline?
That is a great question. I will figure out a way for us to get the entire application information to you. I'm not sure if I'll be able to give you a preview in the application itself, but at the very least, hopefully I can put something up on our CS4HS Google Plus community. So be on the lookout on that Google Plus community for more information.
as Karen mentioned, once the applications come in, it's going to be all hands on deck here at Google to do the reviews and make the funding decisions. But Karen, could you give folks a little bit of background on the review process and the criteria that will be really important to folks when they're putting their proposal together?
Sure. So we will review all of the applications, and we have a committee of people that reviews them. So there will be a number of people that will review your applications and provide feedback, and then we'll collect that feedback and make our final decisions. Let me pull up the website here really quickly, and I'll just touch on a couple of the eligibility points. So as always, we ask that folks be affiliated with a college, university, a technical college, a community college, or some sort of nonprofit that's focused on education. We ask that that the workshops address the AP Computer Science Principles curriculum, and that the workshops will be followed up with a year-round community of practice work that supports ongoing professional development and advocacy for the computer science principles curriculum. And really what we're looking for is that a minimum of 10% of your budget is allocated to some sort of communities of practice work. And again, we want to leave this pretty broad because we know and respect that you are in your local communities and you know what the right community of practice is going to look like and feel like. It could be a partnership with the CSTA. It could be the establishment of a new CSTA chapter. It could be something that we can't even think of right now, but you know because you know your community and you know what would work best. So we just want to see evidence of that, and you'll see in the application there's some detailed questions that get at what your thinking and your planning is around communities of practice. And again, be on the lookout on the CS4HS Google Plus community, and we'll get that detailed information from the application to you so that you can take a look at it and consider it.
Another really good question that's come up, and Karen has touched on this a little bit, which is, can we be more specific about how the budget should be spent? And as Karen said, we really want to be responsive to local needs and to local realities. Some things are just a lot more expensive in some parts of the country than others, and in different countries. But I would like to give you a little bit of background or framework about what not to spend money on. I've already been asked, can we buy gifts for the teachers who are attending? No, we can't support, raffle items or hardware or software. That's just not within the framework of this budget. Some people have asked if they can pay speakers, especially if they're, not in a large city. They need to provide some funding for folks to come in and actually help deliver the content. That's absolutely fine. Some people are providing stipends to the teachers to attend because they say they have to do so to be competitive with other professional development events that are being offered in the area. There's no prohibition about that. We just say, be really reasonable and mostly just be prepared to make an argument about what you're funding and why that's important. It gets especially tricky if you're doing this in partnership with several organizations, and you might want to include some information about who's paying for what. For example, you don't want the reviewers to look through your application and see a big hole in terms of something for which you've asked no funding. So providing a little bit of information about, we don't need you to cover this because it's being covered by our partners. That's a really great idea. So think about scalability, think about cost per teacher, think about what the reasonable cost is of doing this within your particular geographic area, and if there's any special reasons why you need to fund a certain thing, then make that part of your application, because that's valuable information for the reviewers. Now, Irene Lee had a question, Karen, which I'm going to raise for you, which is, is the focus the same for international applicants? And because even though this HOA was planned for U.S. folks, we know that our international educators are going to be watching and participating as well. So can you address that question?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, actually, the funding strategy varies from region to region. Obviously, computer science principles is not a focus and a requirement in countries outside of the U.S. There's always been a focus with CS4HS in terms of communities of practice and follow-up work. It's not quite as extensive in the other regions as it is going to be this year in the U.S., and depending upon how things go here in the U.S., we might see raise our expectations internationally regarding follow-up work in communities of practice happening internationally.
One other piece of this that I want to emphasize too is, it's really important to take a broad view of who should apply. We know that there are lots of amazing nonprofits out there doing good work, and I could list a whole lot of them. If they're interested, if you are part of a nonprofit and you're interested in doing something that focuses on our criteria of community building and supporting the Advanced Placement Principles course, please think of applying. Also, partnerships, very, very welcome. If you're a CSTA chapter and you've got some wherewithal to deliver PD, definitely think about it. You're a nonprofit, you can apply. So think about partnerships. They're always really strong. We know at the international level, especially, we've already had some questions about, what if those of us in multiple countries, apply together to do an event because we share a common language of instruction. Great idea. We really want to make sure that everything that we're putting in place really is part of the plan to build community, and not just to build community in our own regions, but also nationally and internationally. So think broadly, think partnerships, but a partnership is not required, it's certainly not precluded.
Great.
So Karen, this is a question for you, and it looks like it's on a similar line. I lost it a second here. It was about shared, is it okay for shared partnerships to submit several linked proposals for similar events in different regions, perhaps with a shared research component?
Yes, we would welcome that. We love the partnerships, and we're eager to see your creativity in this arena.
I think there might be a cold hard cash question that's linked to this
right.
one. I mean, if they're submitting linked proposals for several different events, how should they handle the funding and budgeting issue? That's a big one.
Right. I think that they should probably split up the budget. So be thinking about which partner would be responsible for which piece. Because at the end of the day, we give grants to a specific university or a specific organization.
So here's another linked one, and I'm glad this question came up. Karen, you're better to answer this than me because you have some historic understanding of some of the things that have been funded. Is buyout of university academic teaching time considered acceptable in order to design, run, and manage the project?
That is a great question, and I actually don't know the answer to that, but I will commit to finding the answer and posting it on our CS4HS Google Plus community.
Good. Thanks, Karen. One of the questions that has come up, to circle back around, is with regard to the communities of practice, and some people are familiar with that term and some aren't. It's also called professional learning communities. There's a lot of research out there. We've really kind of been relying on some germinal research here at Google as we form our thoughts on this. It really comes out of the area of educational change, and it a lot of the work was originally done by Michael Fullan about the importance of putting practitioners out in front of being responsible for their own ongoing learning and for being knowledgeable about what kind of innovation works in the classroom and what doesn't. And all the research that we've seen really says that teachers who have a community of people that can mentor them and whom they can mentor and who can share learnings, practices, examples, frustrations, triumphs are far more likely to be able to sustain positive change over time. When you try and make some changes in the classroom, the amount of pushback is really enormous. And if you have a group that you perceive has your back, that can be very, very helpful. There's lots of different ideas about how to achieve change in education. Coming from the corporate side, we hear a lot about disruptive change. And what we're really trying to focus on is not disruptive change, not change for change's sake, but change that really has the impact that we want, change that's supported by the folks who have the knowledge. I had a wonderful opportunity to hear a broadcast message from the new education minister in Finland. And as some of you know, Finland is so far always on top of all of the international measurements of quality of education and student performance. And she said something that was near and dear to my heart. She said, you know, we don't spend time leaning over the shoulders of our practitioners. They're professionals. They know how to teach. They know what's right and wrong for their students. And we have to give them the opportunity to have conversations that help them identify that among each other and for themselves. And I think, you know, to be really clear, that's part of what's driving our thinking here on the importance of communities of practice as well.
Great. And there was a question about partnering with existing work with a CSTA chapter, and that's absolutely, we will support that. What we won't do is do a pay for work that's been done in the past. So the funds that we will be allocating should be funding for work, for communities of practice work that's going to happen in 2015 and beyond.
Another question here about letters of commitment from partnering school districts. Would they be needed, appropriate, or helpful? Karen, you really run the review process, so what's your thinking on that?
They're not needed, but absolutely, any support that you have that you can document and share in your proposals will certainly be considered.
I think another issue that those of you who've run CS4HS workshops or who are old hands at professional development for computer science teachers probably know this, so it's a little bit like carrying coals to Newcastle. But one of the questions that has often been raised is, how do we ensure that our content is really relevant to the teachers? And I've seen some really good best practices by previous CS4HS fundees that I think have really helped. I know, for example, a couple years ago, the folks at UMass Lowell actually they surveyed their local teachers and said, what do you need to know? What's important? What do you need to learn? And they really try to focus the construction of their event around what teachers perceived that they needed to know. Another way of doing the same kind of thing is really, really, really good idea to involve a high school computer science teacher in your region in the planning of the event before it gets planned and delivered, because they can be your reality check, your relevance check. They can help you identify what's going to be needful for teachers and interesting to teachers. I mean, there's no prohibition to kind of expanding the universe and showing them things that you're doing at your institution that are really exciting. And I've been to some great CS4HS sessions that do that. But one of the things we found is that the events that don't get very good ratings are usually problematic because they've been designed around what the university wants to show the teachers rather than what the teachers know they need to learn or feel they need to learn. And it doesn't mean you can't push the envelope. I mean, you may know that within the within the new CSP curriculum, there's some tricky bits that you really need to focus on to help teachers make sure that they can teach them effectively. But really engage the practitioners in the design and the delivery of the event. It really will, it'll get you a much better review, and it will really help you meet needs and create change.
And I want to touch on, go back to a question that I think that we touched on a little bit earlier from Chris Mayfield. He asks, when the spending limit was raised from $15K to $35K, it was unclear whether the additional funding was intended for instructional support, participant support, etc. And the funding was raised to $35,000 because we know that the production, this was last year, the production of MOOCs and online courses is considerably higher because you have video production costs, you have TA support costs, you have App Engine or other cloud platform costs that you have to consider. So we're leaving, because we are doing opening up the methodology to, again, the development of an online course, a face-to-face course, or some sort of blended approach. We're leaving the dollar amount at that $35,000 mark, so that we can really commit to funding the best proposals. So again, there's wide variety in terms of what it costs to run a CS4HS workshop, depending upon what your strategy is going to be and depending upon what area of the country you're in. So we just wanted to leave enough room for you to hopefully be creative and do what you think is going to be best for your community.
So Karen, I have another question for you. One of the things that we have been talking about internally is metrics, and I mentioned it a little bit, but especially for the folks who have never done a CS4HS workshop before, what's the requirement on their end beyond just the event itself?
Yeah, we are very interested in collecting metrics around the workshops, and this year in particular we will be interested in figuring out ways to collect metrics ongoing, because we are funding these communities of practice and we'd like to see the impact that they have had throughout the year. So every year we have produced a survey that we have asked organizers to distribute to their participants. And we'll continue to do that into 2015, and we're actually hoping to develop some more tools to evaluate those communities of practice. So to be on the lookout, we're in the midst of planning and thinking about what those evaluation tools are going to look like, and we'll get them to you as we move forward.
Great, thank you, Karen. One other question that's come up has to do with the nature of the funding that Google provides under this program. Now, I believe that it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is an unrestricted gift, and so what does that mean for institutions that have not applied before?
Yeah, so the fact that it's an unrestricted gift really means that we're gifting this money to you. And we believe that you have good intentions with the money and you're going to do great things with it. And we don't ask anything in return. It's our gift to you. So at the end of the day, we'll say, send us a report, distribute a survey, but none of that is required.
But if you want us to think kindly on you, and if you want to apply again next year because you've done something fabulous, it's really good to have metrics to support applications.
And I'll also say that the reports that CS4HS organizers and the surveys that teachers send back to us, we use that internally to lobby for more money for the CS4HS program. So we get, year after year, we get amazing feedback from the participants in the CS4HS workshops. You all that have done these in the past have done a fabulous job, and our success rate is like in the 95%, 94%, 95% rate in terms of participants saying that they would recommend these workshops to a peer. So we use that data as we talk about this program internally at Google, and that in turn gets us more money that we can turn around and give to you.
Yeah, and I can't underestimate the importance of that with you. I mean, this is a legacy program at Google. It's from NGDU. It's gone on for several years, and that's quite unusual. And one of the reasons it has is, A, because we've been able to keep it fresh and relevant, to make the argument that, you know, we're not doing the same thing year after year. We're freshening it up. We're making changes that keep it relevant, and that we are, you know, willing to be agile and meet needs as they arise. And the other piece is, as Karen said, the fact that we have good internal metrics about how effective we're being and why this is an important program. And as you imagine, Google has a lot of resources, but it's also really important to spend those resources wisely, and that's the argument that we have to make internally. So your willing participation in providing us with metrics and with results is very much appreciated, and a really good way to keep it alive. Samuel raised the question here, which is the question of whether or not the university can charge overhead on the program. Karen?
We strongly discourage it. Because it is a gift and it's unrestricted, ultimately, as soon as the money leaves Google, we can't say what can and cannot be done with the money, but we strongly discourage it because we know that it does cut into what you're able to do during your workshops.
Here's a really great question about communities of practice and recommended tools for hosting communities of practice. Forums, sites, G+. It really depends on whether you're tapping into an existing COP or you're thinking of starting one. And what we've seen is very diverse models for very diverse communities. I've talked to folks from rural communities who say that they have to have a face-to-face element, and they do the rest of their communicating either with Google Hangouts or some other form of virtual conference meeting tools. We don't have a required one. I can tell you that when I was at CSTA, we used Google tools for a lot of our management of the community of practice in an ongoing way, for both shared communication, shared documents. But there's lots of different tools out there, and we don't really have a kind of best practices we would recommend. And maybe if part of what you're doing is exploring the effectiveness of a particular kind of mechanism for sharing creating community and supporting communities of practice, that's a really useful thing to have in your application, because we would really be interested in learning more about what's effective. That would be a real value added. We are scrolling through questions.
Do we have an estimate for how many proposals will be funded? We don't, because again, each area of the country has a different strategy and different funding needs based on the costs in that local area. So we can't say at this point how many proposals will be funded, because they can all vary.
And that's part of our thinking too. You know, for my discussions with Karen, we have an amount of money that we can spend on this. We would like to fund as many great applications as we possibly can, but especially seeing as the different modalities have different costs associated with them, and that we really didn't want to put a number to any particular modality. We just wanted to fund the best proposals. So it's hard for us to quantify the number, because we just don't know what you're going to send us and what you're going to need.
And again, I'll reiterate what Chris mentioned earlier. You know, Google is a company of scale, and we like scalable things. So if you submit a proposal for $35,000 and you're only going to reach 25 teachers, then you know, probably you're going to have a little bit harder time getting funding. So be thinking about that, thinking about how much money you're asking for and how many teachers you're going to reach will definitely has an impact on our thinking.
Um, one of the questions is, can we share what we've learned about building communities of practice? Karen, I believe that some of the research was cited on the CS4HS page. Is that correct?
It is not on the actual CS4HS website, but we have a bunch of resources that we will post here in this Hangout. I'll also be posting them on the Google Plus community. And I am going to encourage you, because so many of you out there are already doing this, so I am going to encourage that we really get a conversation started on the Google Plus community, because I think that's where people are going to learn the most and get the best ideas.
Karen, what's your biggest piece of advice for folks putting together an application? I mean, as the program manager, your thoughts on what makes an application really competitive?
I think that competitive applications will really have a focus on, again, a clear focus on the computer science principles curriculum and a clear, detailed plan around their community of practice. Thinking about both how, in that community of practice, how teachers are going to be engaged and how the community of practice is going to keep teachers committed to it for the long term. We want teachers to have a resource that's going to be useful and viable for them, not just for the few weeks after the workshop that they participate in, but really for the entire school year while they're rolling out this curriculum in their classrooms or working towards building a curriculum that they're going to use in future quarters and semesters in this classroom. So I think a combination of really being thoughtful about the community of practice focus and the computer science principles curriculum, as well as thinking about scale and repeatability. So can you create resources that will reach as many teachers as possible in your area? And are you creating resources that can be used in other areas of the country? Maybe there's another community in another state that would be able to leverage the work that you've done and move their teachers forward.
Another aspect of this that might be helpful is to really understand that we're not being deeply prescriptive when we talk about being relevant to CSPS. And let me explain that a little bit, because I've gotten a few questions about it already. One teacher approached me and she said, we really need to do something like this in our community. But the problem is we need to start with where our teachers are right now. So they're not going to be ready to teach APCS tomorrow, a month from now, or maybe even 6 months from now. But what we want to do is get them on the pathway to be where they need to be when it becomes an APCS course through the College Board. And that is perfectly fine. One of the things I suggested is, we ask you to identify the concepts or the big ideas that you will be including, that you'll be covering in the professional development event, and we do specify the big ideas. But you can start a fair way down the path in terms of approaching the teaching of those concepts. So, if your audience is not ready to teach APCS right away, but you're getting them on the pathway, absolutely put in a proposal. Don't worry that it's not just going to be for APCS teachers. I know that there are several programs that, the metrics of their success is how many teachers are going to be prepared to fully teach the APCS course when your workshop is completed or when your course is completed. We'd like to know that, but we'd also like to know how many teachers have significantly increased their understanding of the technical and pedagogical components of the CSP course. And that's why we're starting this summer and not next summer. That's why we want to build in time for that learning to ramp up.
That's a great point. Thank you, Chris. Well, we have a few minutes left here. If there are other questions, we encourage you to post them into the Hangout.
One of the things I wanted to mention while we're waiting for questions is we did a previous Hangout on Air that focused on the CS Principles course, and it was a really terrific interview with Owen Astrakhan, who's been the principal investigator in the whole project with the NSF to create this new course. And he had a lot of very specific information about the CS Principles course, what it will cover, what the assessment will look like, all kinds of really valuable information. So when we send out the notice to let you know that this HOA is available for viewing, we're also going to include information on how to access that previous HOA. I mean, you can always just look for it on YouTube, but I would really recommend that you take a look at it, because if you're planning to submit a proposal in this round, knowing a lot more about the course and about, you know, what's coming down the pipeline will be really helpful for you as well. And Owen had, you know, tremendously good insights that he shared, so I'd really encourage you to check that one out as well.
Couple reminders from me. The deadline for the U.S. applications is March 15th at midnight. And for anyone that's viewing this that's outside of the U.S. that's interested in a CS4HS application, you can visit the CS4HS website at cs4hs.com/eligibility, and your region should pop up there, and you can look at what the requirements are for your specific region. And we will be at SIGC this year in the beginning of March, doing a special session on communities of practice, specifically around the computer science principles curriculum and CS4HS applications.
Oh, here's an interesting question. Hi, Michael Rogers. Nice to hear from you. Karen, I'm going to let you take this question from Michael.
Let's see. The problem that everybody who hosts CS4HS workshops, MOOCs, is publicly, and Google arguably has the biggest megaphone on the planet. Yes, I would agree with you on that. Would there be any way in which Google could help with this? Michael, I'm not sure I completely understand your question. You want Google's help with advertising your workshops? And assuming that that's the question that you're asking, getting the word out about your workshops and getting people to participate in them. There are definitely some channels in which we can do that, and we're happy to help where we can. And that's if there was something more specific that you're looking for than that, please feel free to repost your question.
Yeah, I think that one of the issues that Michael's getting at is it's really hard to get information out to teachers about courses that are available. One of the things that we can do is we know that CSTA has a website where they list all on their website. They list all of the summer workshops or the anytime workshops that their institutional members are providing. If you are a CSTA institutional member, that's a really great place to get your event listed. People check it all the time, and you know it's not a lot of work to get it done. It's just a little bit of information that you have to provide about the who and the where and the when. As Karen said, another thing that we can commit to doing, I think, although it's really hard to be fully inclusive and depends on when we get information, is we have a great relationship with CSTA in terms of their getting information out to their members, and we can request that they do a CSTA blast to all their members with a list of the workshops. And I know that's been done very successfully before, and I have in my old incarnation often got really positive feedback from folks who were running workshops that said we had no registration half an hour ago and then it got posted, and now we're turning people away. So that's certainly an avenue that we can provide. And as Karen said, you know, there are internal resources that we can use, and we will take your comment very much to heart and see if we can be creative about that.
And interesting, we have this great connection with the CSTA now here at Google. It's kind of nice. Okay. Great. Well, any other questions? And again, the CS4HS Google Plus community is always online and always available, and we will be happy to answer any additional questions that you might come up with on that community. So please post them there. Okay. Well, if we don't have any other questions, then I think we will sign off and let you get on with your day. Thank you all for participating and asking great questions, and we are very excited and eager to be looking at your proposals.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Send us great proposals so we can send you money to do the fabulous things that you do.
Yep. Great. Thanks so much.